Welcome to the Legacy Leaders Podcast. Are you doing the best for your client to help them create their legacy? Are you creating a plan that goes far beyond finances to help people ensure that it becomes the driving force behind all decisions? On this podcast, hosts Katie Beth Hand and Stan Miller will help you with growing your practice and your clients' peace of mind. Together, they bring the best and brightest minds to share with you how to help your clients develop their best legacy. And now, here are your hosts, Katie Beth and Stan.
Welcome to Legacy Leaders. I'm Rod Hatley. I'm one of the co-hosts of the program. And today it's my pleasure to speak with Jaimi Cortes, who is the founder of Core Philanthropic Strategies. Jaimi, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Rod. Excited to be here.
Tell me, what does your company do so the listeners can understand what it is that you bring to the conversation?
Sure. Well, I can talk about philanthropy all day, but
Okay.
as a philanthropic, as a philanthropic advisor, I support individuals and families in their charitable giving strategies. So that means families who are really seeking clarity and meaning in their giving. So I help them develop a values aligned strategy, work on their interest areas, really hone that down, create budgets together, create a mission statement, and then that creates a whole strategic plan that we can move forward with. And then from there, I can help with the research and the vetting of nonprofits and then involve their families, all ages from 5 to 65, in family philanthropy, and also support legacy giving, such as endowments and scholarships. So it's really a holistic philanthropic advising to support individuals and families who want to use their philanthropic capital to make social impact.
And if I'm working with an estate planning client, you can come in as an advisor to help them if they have a charitable intent and they'd like to be able to make a dent in the universe. You can become part of that conversation, it sounds like.
Yes, for sure. Really working with people who want to include charitable beneficiaries into their estate or trust. This is really important because, as you know, that could be there for 10 years, 20 years, and through a lifetime. So we really want to make sure that the organization is vetted, that the organization can handle the money that might be coming into them in increments or as a whole, to ensure that those organizations won't be tipped and that would not lose government funding. But in general, we want to make sure that if sometimes people put an organization in their state and then 10 years ago, the leadership has changed, the mission has changed. So we want to make sure that we're always looking at that. And that's how I help estate planning attorneys and support clients who want to put philanthropic beneficiaries in their estates.
Fabulous. Thank you. How did you get into what you're doing now? I mean, can you share with us a little bit of your background and what led you to the philanthropic space?
Well, as most philanthropic advisors, I fell into it. So
Okay.
I have been, that's how it works. I had been in the nonprofit and philanthropy field for 20 years. And
Wow.
so the last 10 years have been with a women's foundation and then my local community foundation as a senior advisor. And I really enjoyed working with the clients. I really loved helping clients think intentionally and strategically and really look at philanthropy as part of their broader financial estate legacy life plan. But I went independent because I saw that there was a gap between what was being offered in traditional wealth planning around charitable giving and how can I support that and how can I help people give more intentionally and strategically. And then there were a lot of people who have donor advised funds at big institutions or, many other DAF sponsors who are not receiving any philanthropic advising services. So I really wanted to help those individuals and families who are ready to give, but just didn't know where to start and needed some clarity around that.
Okay. You use an acronym, and for the benefit of our listeners who may not know what that is, can you describe what a DAF is and how would somebody use it?
Yes, a donor advised fund. Sorry. Yes, there's so many acronyms in all of our worlds, right?
Not to worry, but I heard it. I just want to make sure the listeners understand what that is.
Yeah, so a donor advised fund is something where many times a client with their wealth advisor, their professional advisor will say, oh, we're having a large wealth event or we need tax efficient planning. And so you can put a bucket of funds into a donor advised fund, which is a 501c3. And so from there, you get an immediate tax deduction. And then your funds are there in the donor advised funds to be able to use solely for philanthropic giving.
Are you able to help clients set up a donor advised fund?
I can't set up a donor advised fund, but I do help clients find the right donor advised fund for them. There are,
Okay.
lower fee institutional donor advised funds to community foundations to really values aligned donor advised fund where you can also use the capital that is sitting in the donor advised fund, not just to be in investment pools, but to support other loans or projects to help others that may not have usual access to capital.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Is there a particular segment of the population that you work with in terms of, say, the net worth? Or, I mean, can you work with somebody who has a charitable intent, but maybe they're not particularly wealthy, but they have a desire to give back to their community? Can you work with people like that? And are there any minimums that you observe?
No, well, the good thing about being independent is I no longer have to worry about assets under management and how that's supported. So developing a strategy can be for anyone, any giving level. You may be giving, 25,000 to millions of dollars, but everyone needs a strategy. So I really have a, low entry level for people to do that. And then when we want to build into the research and the vetting and things like that, then that we can continue working with that. Or individuals can take that strategy and run with it. I really want people to also have agency to feel like I can do this. I feel good now. I have this strategic plan. So there isn't necessarily a minimum to do that, but when you are wanting to really build bigger impact in certain restricted gifts or endowments or things like that, then you probably want to be giving minimally 50,000.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. So, what do you like best about what you do?
I love everything about what I do.
Okay.
Philanthropy. I know. I'm unicorns and rainbows over here. No, I think
Wonderful.
that, no, someone asked me the other day, like, what do you like least about your job? And I said, I don't have anything to say because philanthropy should be meaningful and joyful. Like, that's my job,
Yeah.
is for it to
Yeah.
be not the stressful, overwhelming thing. So, what do I like most is like meeting individuals and families who are excited, who want to involve their next generation in giving, who I love working, especially with those who maybe I have some people who have been software engineers, right? I'm in the Bay Area. So they have been sitting at their computers building code, and then all of a sudden
Mhm.
their company goes IPO and they have a ton of wealth. And they're so interested and excited to learn and to talk with others and be collaborative around their philanthropy. So I think that's the most fun.
Okay. And so there's nothing that you like least. You enjoy the working with the clients to set this up for, to benefit the society at large, whatever that may mean for the individual with whom you're working.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, what I
can
like
you
least, oh, sorry.
go ahead, please?
No, I was going to say it's not necessarily my day to day what I like least. What I think in my sphere, in the philanthropic giving sphere, is that, there's no, it's actually the number's larger now. It's $326 billion sitting in donor advised funds and
Wow.
1.9 trillion in private foundations. And so that's what I don't like the most is like, that is all for community. That is all for impact, social impact. So how can I move that quicker? We know the world is in crisis, our communities are in crisis. So that's the one part I don't like is the money sitting there. And that's why I got it started is to help people move that money.
Wonderful. Can you share with us a success story? And this doesn't have to be the biggest ticket item that you've ever worked on, although certainly it could be that, but maybe one that perhaps it was a smaller amount, but it really resonated with you. You felt really good that you were able to help these folks make a contribution to the society at large. So, can you share something like that with us?
Sure. I have, many examples of that. One of my favorites was that there is a family matriarch who had a donor advised fund, but didn't really involve her grown children who were not necessarily the best of friends. And so we were
Oh, sorry.
struggling on how to give collaboratively. So what we decided to do was to have one collaborative bucket of funds, and then each of the adult children would get their own bucket of funds so that they could, still do philanthropy, but could do it on their own. And collaboratively, I did the research for them. And how I knew what was the right fit was because I did interviews with each of them and really got to know them and got to know why they were giving And a lot of that had to stem with, their father who was a veteran, is no longer with us. And so one of the things that I looked at was finding a homeless shelter locally who you could sponsor a single apartment for an unhoused veteran. And that was, I think,
Oh,
$25,000. And it was, I mean, the most impactful thing. You're literally getting to sponsor an apartment
yeah.
for an unhoused veteran. And there's many stories like that. You think that that's not a lot of money. I've had people who are winery people, have that middle class, and then they sold their business and they wanted to
Mhm.
give scholarships to all of the children in that were working on their winery. The people who are working on the laborers working on their winery. So there's just so many different ways to think about impact. You just have to think about it at the beginning, not at the end, saying, did my money have impact? Like, how can we define that first and find the right fit?
Yeah.
And that's really about me knowing the individuals and the families and really seeing what I think is going to be meaningful and resonate with them.
Okay. And it sounds like you're able to work with not only estate planning attorneys but also the financial advisors collaboratively to make sure that whatever charitable intent the client may have is listened to, and you can help find the right vehicle for them to make that dent in the universe, if you will.
Yes, correct. So that was another reason why I had built this business, was because I knew that a lot of wealth advisors were setting up donor advised funds or setting up other charitable vehicles, but
Yeah.
then it's just sitting there and then the client doesn't know what to do with it. And I have had many conversations where people have been sitting on their donor advised fund for 10 years or was just stuck and felt like analysis paralysis. Is my money even going to make a difference? And so I want
Yeah.
to partner with wealth advisors and support them as a value add to what they can offer their clients and be supportive in that way. I do help sometimes think about charitable giving vehicles, and I have enough knowledge in that, but I try and stay in my lane in that way because I want the financial advisors to work together. I want us to work together and see what's the right fit for their client.
Yeah. And did I understand you to say that you are in the Bay Area?
Yes.
Okay. So I would imagine then you're probably working, would it be fair to say that you probably have worked with a number of maybe technology companies or employees of technology companies, or maybe even the founders, once they have their IPO and now they're flush with cash, they now need to, and now it gives them that opportunity that they wouldn't have had before necessarily, to be able to pursue any philanthropic desires they have. So I assume that you've probably done a fair amount of that, I'd imagine.
Yes, definitely. That's what we see a lot in the Bay Area. But I will say most of my clients, I have, multiple clients also in New York on the East Coast.
Oh, good.
So it doesn't really matter because people give locally and nationally, internationally. So it's not my job to know everything. There's I think it's 1.5 million nonprofits in the US. So I can work with
Wow.
anyone and really support whatever might be meaningful to them. It's not knowing exactly, I can't know everything, but where to find the right resources and connections.
So you're not limited geographically. So wherever the client may be, whatever they want to do in terms of a philanthropic goal, invariably you can help them really identify what that is and what's the right vehicle to get them to that objective. Okay, wonderful.
Exactly.
Have there been any near misses where you were working on a case and maybe it just didn't get off the ground, or it was one of those, the one that got away? Anything like that you may have had in your career?
I tried to think of one, but I would just say that philanthropy or people, there is no sense of urgency sometimes in philanthropy. So people set up the donor advised fund and it sits there. So I will say, I have, a client that I've been working with for years and he and I have known each other. We're, friends now, but it took probably, gosh, I think it was about 3.5, 4 years for him to finally start being strategic in his philanthropy. He was just writing
Yeah.
checks and I knew it was important, but he was, churning and burning as an entrepreneur, right? Always starting a new business, always doing things. So sometimes it's hard to get people to focus on the philanthropy because they're doing so many other things. So that's probably one of the hardest things, is when you're like, I know that they could be really strategic and they would have all this great things and it would be really meaningful to them and they're just not ready yet. So, you have to just be aware of that. But I don't really have any horror stories.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I mean, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. And it sounds like you've been very lucky. You found something that you really enjoy. You're
Yeah.
working with people who really understand that they want to give something back to the community, either locally or more spread out. And you're able to help them really get clear about what that is, what it looks like, and find the right vehicle to help them make that impact, which is terrific. Let's see, as we wind down here, is there anything that you would want the listeners to know, either about you or your company, Core Philanthropic Strategies?
Well, I just want to say, yes, I do feel very lucky to be
Yeah.
doing this job. And now I'm also developing curriculum and helping others who want to be philanthropic advisors, working with an organization called Daylight Advisors to support that work. So, anything I want to talk about myself, I would just say that many people don't know why or when to choose a philanthropic advisor or how to bring them on. And I would say, I think most people are generous, right? They are probably already giving in some way of their time, of
Sure.
their talent, their church, whatever it may be, but not necessarily
Right.
everyone is giving strategically, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I really want to help people think about their philanthropic capital just like their financial capital. And that means building a portfolio. And so that can look like different buckets, a discretionary bucket you may have, your strategic bucket that we're really going to develop. It may be an impact investing bucket that you can do with certain donor advised funds. A crisis bucket, we know that there's so many things that happen in our local communities or beyond. And so a lot of people want to do that. And I think I want to make sure that it's aligned all together. And then also, I think what's a little bit different about me is I really think about it from a community first perspective. Like, is what we're doing and how we're doing it right for also the community and the nonprofit, right? We want to make this aligned and joyful. So for everyone.
How can any listener who's interested to pursue philanthropy, how can they contact you? What's your contact information?
Well, I try to be active on LinkedIn. So that's just
Okay.
my first and last name. My first name spelled very oddly. So Jaimi, and then Cortes at the end with an S. Or my website is there. And then at www.core with no E, corephilanthropy.com. And you'll on my website understand why I named it Core. There's a story there. And on my email is always the best way. So my first name and then Jaimi at corephilanthropy.com.
Okay. Can you share with us briefly what the background or the story is behind Core, COR?
Oh, sure. I really think about my values every day and how I lead and, model with my family. And so that includes community, whatever that looks like to you, integrity and equity. And I learned a lot of that from my grandmother. And so you'll see the word core without an E is Latin meaning, giving with heart, hard work,
Ah,
thinking together. And also my last name Core. So it just kind of all fit together. And yeah,
so you're predestined to do this. No matter you had no choice. You were going to
I
wind up doing
guess
it.
so. You're right.
Very good. Jaimi, it's been a pleasure to speak with you. Listeners, if you have any interest in philanthropy, Jaimi's information will be provided with this podcast. So please reach out to Jaimi. Jaimi, thank you for the opportunity to learn more about Core Philanthropic Strategies, and thank you for sharing the time.
Thank you, Rod. I appreciate the time too.
You're welcome.
You've been listening to the Legacy Leaders Podcast with Katie Beth Hand and Stan Miller. For more information on them and the show, please visit pinnaclelegacylaw.com. If you like what you've learned today, do share the program with your friends and subscribe wherever podcasts are found.